Welcome to First Dates and Soulmates that, we're always just reminding us that Bridgerton runs on three things: repression, proximity, and a whole lot of chemistry. I am your host, Nikki McKnight.
And I'm Meg Casebold. I thought you were going to say butts.
Butts could, if there was a fourth thing that Bridgerton runs on, it is in fact butts. We are continuing our Bridgerton series. Today we are going to be talking about part 1 of season 4. The first 4 episodes have dropped and now we have to wait a month for the second half of the season to come out. Meg, what are your macro thoughts on this first part of season 4?
This might be my favorite four episode arc of Bridgerton. Not Queen Charlotte, I'm not throwing that in there, but of the Bridgerton adaptation. I am actually looking forward to the second half, which I did not feel last season. I was very trepidatious at the halfway point because I wasn't sure they were going to stick the landing, whereas this one, they are so faithful to the originals that I have some issues. I have some problems. I have some changes that I would have made. But overall, I think this might be my favorite season.
Ooh.
What about you, Nikki? Big picture thoughts.
I will agree. I think this has been the strongest start to a season since probably season 1. I think in terms of chemistry, Kate and Anthony, I think are still my favorite. But I, like many people, I think I was so disappointed by the writing in season 3 because it feel like Colin and Penn did not get any screen time. It was Danbury and the Queen. It was the Mondriches. It was Eloise. It was all of these side plots. So for season 4 so far to be extremely couple focused, and even when the couple is not on screen, we're still spending time with Benedict. We're still spending time with Sophie, and the number of side storylines have definitely gone down in the first 4 episodes.
And they're supporting the primary story.
Exactly. They're not like another random, the Featheringtons got a lot of screen time in season 3, which kind of made sense because Penelope was involved, but every season, and this is not like something bad against the Featheringtons. I think the cast is great, but they had a disproportionate amount of screen time for storylines that didn't support the main story.
Exactly. The A plot is really strong. That's my biggest takeaway. Is the A plot is strong. The B plot is supporting the A plot, and the C and D plots are not more than 10 to 15% of it. And I feel like that's so much more the balance that not only we expect from something like an adaptation, but just better screenwriting. It didn't feel like we were just slicing around all of London trying to get everyone's stories in this year. It was one primary story with other stories that support it. So even the Maid wars are there for a reason, not just because we want to peek into other people's houses and have different sets.
Yeah. So far I'm impressed. I have high hopes. I am laughing at a lot of the social media rhetoric saying like, oh my God, Benedict is horrible. How dare he ask her to be his mistress? And I hate to be one of those people. It's like, well, if you've read the book, because the adaptation should stand on its own, but also at the same time, and I would love to discuss this later as we get more towards that part of the first couple episodes. Like, no, there's so many reasons why it makes sense that Benedict is the way he is. Like, can we not have flawed heroes? I think this is a larger conversation in just film and TV in general, that anytime a character starts off a book or starts off a story flawed, making bad decisions, the overwhelming rhetoric right now is, oh my God, they're such a horrible person. I'm going to DNF. I'm not going to finish it. It's like, how about they have an arc?
Yeah.
Like,
they
do
have
we
to
forget
be able to grow from something?
Exactly. And I think, the world being what it is, a lot of people be like, well, if they're not immediately good from the beginning, then they are bad people and they should be canceled. That makes for a boring ass story.
It really does. And I
it's
think
also the
like,
assumption.
we had 4 hours with Benedict before this moment. And the reason that they set it up that way was to have it feel like the cliffhanger. So to kind of throw away the previous 4 hours and everything that he did do right, because he had one question that was completely appropriate for the time and not just historically okay, but was set up in the screenplay. It didn't come out of left field. That's huge for me.
Yeah, it makes
sense. The storytelling worked.
Yeah, let's just let people be flawed.
Yes.
Like, flawed characters are great because they get to change or not change, as the case may be, and both of those things can be satisfying. So calm down. Calm down. Chill the fuck out, guys. Just let it go.
And we are at halfway. which is often the turning point of a story. There's a reason they call it the midpoint shift. This is the moment where the change happens. So let it happen. Don't judge something based on the halfway point.
Yeah.
This is not even the dark moment. This is just like, oh, I realized something about myself today. Like, can't everyone have some sort of awareness that happens at that point? Or realize that they've made a mistake? Like, you have to give people a chance to grow.
Yeah, because if you assume people have to be perfect from the very beginning, or also that they have to be extremely aware of their own failings, then they can't go anywhere from there. But two, what does that say about our belief in a human's ability to change, just in general, for good or for ill? Because if you expect this perfection, even in romance, I think that's too high an expectation.
I completely agree. If you expect your characters to be perfect the entire way through, then it's a very boring story.
Yeah, and we often talk about romance as being the intersection of fantasy and reality. Right. So a lot of times stories are based in reality. It's interpersonal relationships, it's economic needs, it's family, it's lifestyle, it's all these things. But one of the reasons we like romance is it introduces a fantastical element to it, even if it's not dragons. But this idea of pick me, choose me in a very nice way. Or, we talked, I think it was last week, about like speculative fiction. Like, there is a little bit of speculative. Bridgerton, the adaptation, is in many ways a work of speculative fiction in terms of the adaptation. What would happen if people of color were invited into the nobility? What would happen if the music was modern and we had a string version of a Taylor Swift song?
Yeah.
Let it breathe, people. Let it
There's
breathe.
a little bit of science fiction here. Much the same way that Morning Glory Milking Farm, which I can't believe we're bringing Morning Glory Milking Farm into a conversation about Bridgerton, but it's relevant, goddammit. Much the same way that Morning Glory Milking Farm was, in fact, a commentary on workplace dynamics and what it could look like if people had a living wage and were treated well in the workplace. So is fucking Bridgerton. Do we realize the correlation between... It's not Minotaur semen that we're...
Thank God.
For the first time this season, we're really seeing into the kitchen. We're really seeing sort of the people who are making this happen, who are making the Bridgertons able to live this privileged lifestyle, the temps to have these glorious parties. But who are the ones who are making the dresses? Who are the ones who are making the food? Who, the queen is there going, look, I got these imported from this country and these imported from this country, and I didn't even know that I had maids. And they're like, oh, well, you have like 240 maids. Like the recognition of the regency and the aristocracy that we so often see in these books is a tiny percentage of the reality of the situation. And then we have the speculative fiction on top of what if there wasn't this class divide? What if the staff was treated with respect? And I think the whole Varley plot line, which this is the first time that I've actually enjoyed watching a scene with the Featheringtons, is so indicative of these class struggles, which, they went out of order in Bridgerton. This was book 3, but season 4. And honestly, this is landing better in 2026 than it would have in 2025 or 2024, I think, because of the economy. Seeing these questions of like, can you give me a raise? Oh, well, we can't give you a raise, but here are my dresses. I
got a better job offer over here, and it's so hard to find good help over here, and it took 3 people to do the work of one maid. Like, I think every overworked perfectionist millennial in a corporate environment has realized that, I do the job of 7 people. When I ask for a promotion, it's not granted. But when I quit, they have to hire 7 people. I identify that. Okay. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of this season so far, is the upstairs downstairs part of it. Not just in the class differential between Benedict and Sophie, but I loved seeing Mrs. Wilson with the rest of the staff. Yes. John the footman is hilarious. Alfie the footman back at Araminta's with Sophie, he's hilarious. We should all have a friend like Alfie who knows how to sew.
And who has a Welsh accent. That way you just
oh my God, the accent, I love that. Sophie, I can sew. I've seen a woman in her shift before, Sophie. I loved him. I want him to come back at some point.
I love that actor, but I also want him to play by the guy who plays Jamie from
from Outlander.
No, what's the soccer? Ted Lasso. I wanted it to be him. Jamie Tartitude.
It's great.
This is showing my limited knowledge of Welsh actors who speak in Welsh accents.
I know very few. I think Christian Bale is Welsh.
I think Christian Bale is Welsh. I think Reese, who was in the Americans, is Welsh.
Risa Ifan? I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
No, he's the one who's married to Kerry Russell. But you wouldn't know he's Welsh because he was in the Americans. And then he was speaking Russian.
Here was the fun part. Yaren Ha, who plays Sophie, is Australian.
I didn't know that.
And I only noticed it a couple times throughout this part of the season that I just heard something go, there's an accent slip there. Like very, very minor. And you could just say, oh, it's England is a melting pot of accents. So it could just be like, oh, she went regional. But no, she's Australian.
Isn't the woman who plays Penelope also Irish too? So she had to put on an English accent.
Yeah, Nicola Coughlan is very Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delightful. Okay, let's dive in. I want to talk episode 1 because it has the ball, the big showpiece, and starting a season with a big showpiece like this, I'm a fan of. This was very fun because we get to see Mrs. Wilson and the staff preparing. We get Francesca, Eloise, and John now coming back from Scotland. We see Penelope and Colin are super horny for each other and they've got a baby. We get the little side thing of Anthony and Kate have had a baby in India because I believe Jonathan Bailey was still filming Wicked 1 and 2 during this, so he was not as present. And then you've got, the Queen, Lady Danbury, and Penelope talking about like, hey, what's Whistledown going to be doing this season? The Mondriches and the Featheringtons are mentioned again, but in a way that was like very cohesive of the main narrative. We're preparing for this ball. And then you get Violet really kind of setting the stage for how disconnected Benedict has been by when he does not show up to welcome the girls and John home from Scotland. She goes to his bachelor lodgings and says, I have had enough with this bullshit. Goes in, rips a sheet off, and there is her naked son with not one, but 2 paramours in his room. Oh my God. Violet's fantastic this season. And I like how Penelope and Colin, we're seeing more of their relationship so far in this season than we did in the previous season.
Oh my gosh, they're so much more engaging now as a married couple.
Because they're fucking everywhere. They be fucking in carriages. They be fucking in bedrooms. They be doing lots of things. Okay, can I tell you one of my complaints about this season so far? Because it relates to Penelope.
Yes.
In the books, it is found out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown much later. And obviously, also, she's book 4. So Benedict and Sophie are already together by the time we find out about this. How does the show expect us to now treat Whistledown? Because, at the Masquerade, it makes sense that people don't know that it's Penelope because she's wearing a long blonde wig. So they're still gossiping around her. And she's like, ooh, like something for my next issue of Lady Whistledown. But once she removes her mask, and people are like, that's Penelope Bridgerton. That's Lady Whistledown. And they come up to her and they start saying hi. Like, the voiceover by Julie Andrews is constant. But are we to assume that is still what is being published in the column? Because she's talking shit about Benedict. She's talking shit about, like, some of the lords and ladies during the Maid Wars. Like, there's that one woman who loses her maid, so her scullery maid is doing her hair, and Lady Whistledown's like, her hair is so shit. Everybody knows that's Penelope now.
Right.
So, like, how is this supposed to play? So I don't like that everybody knows that Penelope is Whistledown, because now it feels like anything she says is not real.
It's not her as her alias anymore.
So
it can be traced back to her, and therefore there could be ramifications. And so far there haven't been, I think there would have been. Last season I was like, I don't like this because I feel like now that she has been unmasked, like, what are the consequences? And I didn't think that they were going to follow through on the consequences. And guess what? There are no consequences except she has to stand by the queen. And my issue with Bridgerton and having the queen in it and I think they're doing better with it this season, has always been like, doesn't she have shit to do?
Or not, really. What do monarchs of this time actually be doing?
Right, but I mean, she's just sitting around reading the paper and playing chess. Okay,
well, if you consider
fine.
her oldest son is the one that is like, he's the crown prince. So he's probably doing most of the ruling.
That's true.
Since King George is kind of MIA. But even with the queen.
But like she's the queen. She has to go to every ball. She has to be at everything just so that way she can like. And I wish they had taken her out a little bit more. But anyway, the point being that I think they are starting to delve into Penelope's identity shift when the queen calls her up to say, what do you expect this season? She's turning to Penelope to say, you know, what are you seeing? Give me the pre-gossip gossip.
Yeah.
And there's a couple moments where Penelope's being used intentionally to be like, we want to send a message to the lady in silver. So like publish this about Benedict. And then I think in the final episode of season 4 or episode 4 rather, she said something like, well, I'm just a mouthpiece for the queen now. I'm not even doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So you see a bit of her resentment coming out, which I did appreciate.
I appreciate that too, because one of the reasons people liked Whistledown from the very beginning is she said the true thing, even if the true thing wasn't societally acceptable. And people like to hear dirt on other people. Like, I love the drama when I'm not a part of the drama. And that's what Whistledown is. So for everyone to know that it's Penelope and for the queen to be so directly involved, I do not like. If anything, sure, maybe the Bridgertons know that it's her and they kind of like give her permission to talk about them in Whistledown to keep it even, to keep up the ruse. But Whistledown has lost a lot of, one, her bite, and two, her effectiveness as a gossip columnist commenting on the life of the nobility in Mayfair, simply by way that everybody knows who she is.
Yeah, and there was a moment where somebody gave her a bit of gossip and she's like, I won't ruin that person because of it. Yeah. So she still has those sort of integrity, the principles that she had. But I think about like the person who writes, I don't even know how to pronounce it, De Moi. Do you know this like publication, this tabloid online where it's just like all
I hate what they did to Hudson Williams.
Yeah, all the like blinds that they publish and things like that. I read an article by the person who runs De Moi, who is completely secretive, and she was like at a restaurant in like New York or LA, and she heard celebrities talking about like secret pregnancies or something like that, and she was like, they didn't know it was me. And then I had to like go home and hide and make sure that I waited a couple days to publish so they couldn't trace it back to the fact that I was at that restaurant sitting at the table next to them. So that way they, you know, like, and the amount of subterfuge. She did. She did still release it. And so like, even now we still have these kind of modern gossip channels, but there's no way to trace it back to this person so that we can sue them for libel. And that's the only reason that they're able to publish at scale like that. So it's kind of interesting to have the modern comparison to it versus now, again, zero consequences.
Yeah. Also,
and she has lost her bite. She has lost what makes it interesting to read. And now it's just, and then the queen saying like, I don't care about maids. It's like, well, I kind of felt that way when I was reading the first book, you know, and that was before she'd been unmasked.
Yeah, with the Queen and Penelope kind of having their relationship in the season, the Queen also makes a bet with Penelope and they end up on whether or not Benedict will get married by the end of the season, which immediately truncates the Benedict-Sophie timeline. Because in the book, it's a 2-year difference between when he sees the lady in silver at the ball and when he meets up with Sophie again at the Cavenders. 2 years. So Sophie's life experience has changed a lot. In the show, it's a month or two.
Yeah.
Because the Bridgerton Masquerade Ball kicks off the season.
So that's
the first ball of the season.
May?
Maybe, because a lot of them go away for the summer and then they come back in the fall. So it's like early enough up there. But like she says, by the end of the season, well, now instead of 2 years difference, which again, maybe gets into a little bit more about why Benedict doesn't recognize Sophie, because he saw her for an hour 2 years ago with a mask on and he was drunk. It makes more sense. I think that's why a lot of people are like, how could she not recognize him? There's like no Asian people in this version of Bridgerton.
I mean, yeah. But in the books, she cuts her hair. She's lost a lot of weight. Like she really does look different. Yeah. It would have been interesting to have her make some of those decisions. Obviously, you can't lose that much weight in a month, especially if you're still working and they didn't want to go too far into like, you know, homelessness in this time period would be a problematic place for it to go when it's supposed to be this sort of highbrow, kind of high concept idea. But they could have had her sell her hair. Very like Les Mis, you know,
Yeah,
Fontaine
Little
doing
Women.
this. Yeah, exactly. You know, like to have her look different in some way they could have. But I mean, it still is, like you said, it was an hour, he was drunk. He's already started to forget. You know, like, and he says that, I have already started to forget what she looks like by the time he gets there. And he does have that moment of, like, her mouth. Right? But it's fantasy.
Yeah. With the masquerade ball, I can't think of many people, probably women more especially, that have not at some point in their life been, I wish I could go to a masquerade ball. Because the costumes here were fabulous.
Incredible.
Logistically, I kept thinking, I would have a mask strapped to my face because the people were just holding it on a stick. How do you like eat and drink? You have to keep holding this on a stick. What if my arm gets tired? And then, oh, look, I'm unmasked. It's not midnight yet. Why would you ever want to hold a mask in your hand versus having one strapped to your face?
Well, I think it's how much do you really want to be hidden?
Oh, I guess that's
also
true.
like, I don't think I would enjoy a masquerade ball. I don't even like Halloween costumes.
Oh, I would love a masquerade. I get to dress all fancy. Like the Mondriches, they're like Cleopatra Mark Antony costume.
So good.
Freaking fabulous. Eloise's Joan of Arc inspired thing. Wonderful.
Her little bob was super cute.
Oh my God, the bob was great.
So
and
cute.
then there was
The Zeus.
yeah, and the two Zeuses. I love that Lady Danbury and her brother were both dressed up
love
as
that.
so good. Lord Anderson looked fabulous, but so did Lady Danbury. Loved that so much for them. And then Colin and Penelope is like the pirate and the pirate queen. So good. I loved all of the costumes. This was so delightful. And I liked when Sophie showed up. It was really simple. It was just silver. Like there wasn't a theme. Like you had Rosamund and Posey who were like, I'm a mermaid. And we're like, okay, cool. They were really cute, but I liked she was just nice and simple.
Here are two things that I loved about this. And some of it bleeds into episode 2, so if you want me to put a pin in it, I can.
No, do I?
One was the fact that she took more agency about her choice to go to the ball. It wasn't, okay, the girls left and now the staff, the fairy godmother character is going to come in and Sophie, we're sending you to the ball. It was Sophie saying, what if I could go? Wouldn't it be great to have that one night? And then she's the one who thinks, oh, I think there's some clothes up in the attic. Alfie, can you go look for it? She's taking more responsibility for the decision to go. She's more active in that decision. And that was all episode 2, right? But I also fucking loved the decision to not have her name be mentioned or any of her backstory mentioned until the second episode.
Yeah, I really like how they showed it like all the way up to Sophie at the ball, Benedict noting to her their little witty repartee, the almost kiss in the garden, and Benedict's like, no, I'm not going to do that. We're like, how noble. And then it's midnight and Sophie's like, fuck, by the way, kiss, bye. And then like that ends it. And then the very next episode begins with like a flashback to the evening before.
Yes.
To not only set the stage for her relationship with Araminta, with Posey, with Rosamund, but how did that happen? Why would someone as cautious as Sophie be, fuck it, I'm going to a ball.
I'm going to the ball. Don't care anymore.
I loved how she got up to that because I think if you take that incident out, it would be kind of out of character for Sophie to want to do something so visible and so ostentatious in a way. But when you see what got her to that moment with her shitty ass family and her most excellent friends, like her kind of griping of like, they don't even appreciate it. Like what I would do to go. And she's just angry. She's just
ranting.
word vomiting.
Yeah.
She's just ranting.
We've all
And then
been
to have
there.
her friends go, but what if you could?
We
But what if
have
you
this
could?
mask that they just said that they weren't going to wear,
And they
haven't
didn't
ever
see
seen.
it yet, which I also thought was great how they set that up. So yeah, I loved it. Okay, before we get to more talking about Sophie and how the next episode goes, I have a controversial opinion.
Really quickly before we go there, I just want to reiterate how clever I thought it was to just have the whole first episode be Bridgerton based. Because the book starts, the prologue is her childhood, and we start with Sophie, because Sophie is the protagonist of the book. Right? For most of these books, the woman is the protagonist, even if it's like the man is the Bridgerton. Kate's the protagonist of her book. Penelope's the protagonist of her book. You know, even if it's Benedict's book because he's the member of the family, right? So it starts with Sophie. We start the whole first 2 chapters with Sophie. We don't see Benedict, except I think until we get to the ball. And Sophie's already made the decision to go there. So starting the season there would have felt really jarring because we didn't have the context of where is this happening in Mayfair, where are the Bridgertons. So to take the entire first episode, and like we see Sophie's perspective, but really it's Benedict who is getting the protagonist treatment, because we're seeing him skipping things for his family, we're seeing him going to his club, we're seeing him hook up with other people, we're seeing him sort of be this like free spirit character, so that we can see the change when he does meet the Lady in Silver. We can see the adjustment of, oh, something has changed in his life, versus Sophie goes back to the status quo. So it wouldn't have worked as well on screen to be directly following the adaptation of starting with Sophie. I think it was just such an incredibly smart choice to start with the Bridgertons, to reestablish our world as the Bridgertons, and then bring Sophie into the existing world in that way.
I like it.
And then,
I like it.
And then not do anything with her. I mean, like, if this had been a week over week thing, everyone would have been like, well, who is this girl? You know? And that's lovely to think about. That people could have been stuck in that, like, who was the Lady in Silver for a week if we'd actually dripped it out sort of old school style instead of half season. To sort of be in Benedict's shoes with it, with like, oh, who is this woman? We've never seen her before. She hasn't been to these parties. How does she not know how to dance? You know, like, knowing all of that, I feel like it was just such a smart storytelling decision.
Yeah, especially if you haven't read the book, then I think that would allow like the suspense and curiosity to build.
Who hasn't read the book?
A lot of people, based on what I've seen on Threads, which is totally fine. Like, you don't have to have read the book to do it. I just give it a chance to breathe. Then there's an arc coming.
If you don't know the full story, like, it's one thing to criticize the adaptation. It's another thing to not know the full story and to criticize at the halfway point.
The second thing that really, really bothered me about this season so far is it's not quite queer baiting, but it felt queer baiting adjacent. In previous seasons, we have seen Benedict be involved with men, either, you know, in groups, adjacent. We talked about it when we talked about the book last week. Before he goes to the ball, he goes to one of his clubs and he sees this very handsome man. And apparently they know each other. They have been together before. And he's like, hey, I can't stay. I have to go to my mother's ball. And his partner says, you know, I don't need that much time. And then they start making out. Presumably they have some type of sexual interaction before Benedict goes to the ball. I know that Benedict has had interactions with men in previous seasons. In what I've seen from Julia Quinn in press over the years is that in modern terms, she would consider Benedict to be pansexual. Awesome. Not discounting it. But for him to just do this one thing of like, I'm going to make out with this dude before I go to a ball, it just felt so out of place.
Yeah.
That it felt like they were like, oh, we have to remind people that Benedict is really artistic and free. Make out with that guy and then go. It just felt so, again, it's not queer baiting because they showed it. Queer baiting is not showing things. But it felt queer baiting adjacent to just be like, ooh, remember, he's a frisky man.
Maybe it's not queer baiting, it's just queer teasing. It's like, I'm just going to give you a little taste. I'm just going to and then take it away.
But like, to what end? Like, it felt performative
by
the screenplay rather than reminding people that, just because Benedict is going to fall madly in love with Sophie doesn't erase part of his queerness. But the way it was presented was, I just want to get my dick wet before I go to this ball. Mm-hmm. And that felt bad to me.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. Did not like that at all.
Did not like it. I mean, they did show him having sexual relations with men and women in previous seasons, so it was consistent with the character. However, to have it be like, we're going to make out, we're going to imply something more is going to happen, and then we're never going to mention it again because he met woman.
Yeah, I feel like it was the show having to pay lip service to the fact that they had involved him in queer relationships prior to this season, because once he meets Sophie, like, that's it. He's going to be with a woman. And just because you're with a woman doesn't mean that you are not a pansexual man, a bi man, a queer man. Like, it doesn't really matter in that way. But like, it just felt like since we set this up, we got to make sure people feel good about it. Mm-hmm. And why?
And now he met someone for an hour, and now he is straight and monogamous.
Well, he's still not straight. He's not straight.
But you know what I mean? He's straight appearing. He's hetero acting. He needs to get a wife, and this is the only opportunity. And so he's going to behave in a way that is societally acceptable because woman.
Yeah, I just wouldn't use the word straight. Like, but the whole thing, it just like, I don't like how they handled this. It felt weird. Okay, but I do love in episode 2, that we do get to see more of Sophie and Araminta and Posey. Please, people, protect Posey at all costs. Oh my God, I fucking love Posey.
Her feet, hands, and her dream.
Oh my God, I love her. I would listen to her dreams about hand, feet, feet, hands. She's
and that's
so
why
good.
I couldn't go to the theater.
Yes, it was so good. I love when Sophie kind of starts bitching about them. Alfie goes, "Oh, you're spiteful Sophie versus sad Sophie," and just calling her out on her shit. I love that.
I love that you actually see Sophie fall a little bit more in love with Benedict because he's so kind to Posey.
Yeah, just what I love when he shows up. So he finds this glove. He's using Penelope and Eloise to help him. I love that they are friends again. And they try to do all this subterfuge. And he's like, "I'm done. I can't do it. It's not working." And then Violet's like, "I bullied Penelope. And she tells me you were interested." And he's like, "Fine. There was this woman and I'm so stuck." And she just picks up the glove and goes, "Penwood." It's just like, trust your mother, even if she's being a little bit pushy this season. So when he shows up to the Penwoods and he's talking to Sophie, I think he can tell pretty quickly it's not his woman in silver. But I feel that he is delighted in listening to Posey because it reminds him of his family. His family talks about weird shit in the drawing room. Hands, feet, feet, hands.
And I think also, like, he shows up and he knows he's not there for Rosamund because he has Rosamund, like, went down to Rotten Row and, like, forced her.
Yeah, and he already knows what her costume was. And
exactly. He knows that. And then he sees the response when he shows up and asks for Posey. And I feel like he's almost, like, rubbing his interest in Araminta and Rosamund's face, which I loved that spitefulness of, like, no, I will sit here and listen to her for an hour and I'll ask follow-up questions and I'll ask for more tea and I'll just like it was so important to him to be respectful to Posey almost as an insult to Araminta, which I love.
Yeah, the Bridgertons have been around the block. Like they know all about shitty people in the nobility and how to manage them. I think we sometimes forget that when they're being drama. Benedict knows how to handle himself.
He does. He knows
he's
how to
maintained
charm.
Single this whole time. He knows how to handle himself. I love them.
He went to Eton. He knows the rules. He just chooses when to break them because he knows he can because he has that status. And I feel like what we were talking about at the beginning about people being like, "Oh, well, he's the worst." It's like, no, he knows when he can get away with breaking the rules and he knows when he has to come to heel for his mother and he's working the system and he's stepping in for the Viscount. You know, like he has some more responsibilities in this book this season than he did in the book. But even so, you know, he's kind of free-spirited for a reason because he's a little aimless. Not as aimless as Colin was last season, but he doesn't really have a role. He doesn't really, especially in the book, he's sort of like, doesn't really have a lot going on in his life, and he's trying to figure it out.
Which made him kind of wishy-washy this entire season. I'm doing the Lady in Silver. I'm ignoring it. I'm doing it again. I'm not doing it. I love my art. I don't like my art. I'm drawing again. I'm not drawing again. I went to art school. I left art school because it wasn't what I thought, which again works for his flawed character. But of the third time, he was like, "I am going to find this Lady in Silver." I was like, "Benedict, make up your fucking mind, my dude.
Yeah.
This is wishy-washy. I don't love it." One of the best acting moments I think in this season so far was when Benedict is in with Posey. And Sophie and Alfie have this like, will she go in and reveal herself or not?
Yes.
But immediately after, Sophie's like, "No, he's not here for me." And she goes into another room, covers her mouth, and screams. She gives herself this moment of like absolute rage and despair and disappointment and anger. And then immediately she has to like wipe it clean, put on like that placid look on her face. And then I got to go clean some shoes.
Go back to work.
Oh my God, Yarenha was so good in that. It's like a 10-second scene, but that scream and then having to like resettle. Amazing. But then she's a dumb bitch. Sorry, Sophie. She's a dumb bitch. Because when Araminta and the girls see Benedict holding the glove, Araminta immediately clues into the fact, much like in the books, that's the Penwood glove. So she goes up and she has Sophie try on her scuffed shoes. But she's like, "And then I found that silver dress you left under your mattress." Bed. Sophie, you dumb bitch. Why would you leave the dress in your room? Put it back in the attic. That's where it belongs.
I mean,
Why?
I think Araminta was already ready to kick her out. It wasn't that wasn't the smoking gun. The smoking gun was the glove, not the shoes, not the dress. That was just a confirmation.
Yeah. But like, why would Sophie keep the dress? She already had the glove. If she wanted a memento, she had the glove still. Why would you keep the dress?
It's probably been at least a week at this point, so she would have had time to make it up to the attic. It wasn't like the next day.
And if not, her Alfie would put it back.
Yeah.
One of the other maids would put it back. Like, I was so angry. I knew it had to happen from a plot device, but I was like, girl, have we not learned anything from any of the Cinderella stories, any story out there, that if you have evidence that was you in disguise, you burn the evidence?
Yeah, you worked really hard to make sure the beds were turned down the way that you would have turned them down, and yet you did not put away the dress.
Oh my God. And then she gets kicked out by Araminta. I love how the servants give her money on her way out, and they're like, we took up a collection, because in this universe, as we're seeing the downstairs folks, it's the people who have the least who give the most.
Yes.
Loved. And then Posey coming in with like the shoe clips and being like, take them.
I loved the choice to have Posey give her the shoe clips. I love because we have this shift, right? That in the show, Sophie is more in control. She is not being sort of pushed into the ball. She is choosing the ball. She is taking the agency. And in the book, she's pushed to the point where she takes the shoe clips because she feels like that's the only way out. And she does actually steal the shoe clips. And then Posey throws herself on the sword in the final moments,
she pretends
right?
it was her. She's like, no, I did it later.
But I love the decision to actually have Posey make the decision that Posey steals the shoe clip. So that way when Posey goes to get her out in probably episode 7 or 8 of the season, we will remember it was actually, Posey's not lying. Posey is telling the truth. And even though Sophie took the shoe clips, they could have been seen as a gift from Posey, not as a theft from Araminta. And I think, Sophie knew in that moment that she was stealing, right? That was the choice, that she was complicit, even if she was not the one who was taking them. She was complicit in the removal of them from the house. But the choice to have Posey be the one who gave them to her, I think is going to land so much better for watchers. I think readers can handle a bit more nuance because we have more time for the information to sit. Yeah. But like when you're watching something, you want the visual of somebody handing you the shoe clip instead of Sophie already being in the closet and making that decision alone. I think that was such a smart choice from a storytelling perspective. Yeah.
It was and also just made me love Posey more, which makes me really happy for how the book ends with Posey.
I really hope it ends the same way.
It has to. You cannot introduce someone as lovely as Posey and not have her like get adopted.
And I think also like just from like a budget perspective, Posey as an actress is going to be cheaper than Penelope and Colin, and they kept them along longer than they have any of the other leads from previous seasons. And probably, now that Luke What's-His-Face is the top billing on the show in terms of number of episodes shown, and then they're gonna have to move out to the country after this, like we're gonna have to get some replacement supporting characters in, so that way Violet's not just like left alone in Bridgerton house. So having Posey eventually potentially move in with Violet and be her ward is such a smart way to have this beloved character like supplement future episodes and future seasons without it being heavy-handed, Yeah,
I love her. And now we get to the climactic point of the story where they are reunited. In the book, it's been 2 years. This is a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, where a drunken Benedict is partying with the shitty dude, Mr. Cavender. He sees that Cavender and his friends about to assault a maid in the show. It's assaulting a maid, and then Sophie rescues her. Hazel, and then Benedict rescues Sophie. There's a fight, there's a brawl. Sophie is let go as she does before, and Benedict's like, "Hey, come with me. I'll keep you safe. I'll find you work." And then Sophie leaves without getting her stuff from her room.
I thought that too. What the hell?
A lot of people are thinking this, and somebody was like, "Oh, I bet Hazel would bring it to her later." But Sophie would not leave her meager possessions behind before she goes to this other place. So it's almost like when you see women in rom-coms go out and like, where's their purse? Where's their coat? These girls are not 21 going to the club in Toronto and it's -20 and the snowbanks are 6 feet tall. Like, I didn't bring a coat then. But where's her purse?
Yeah.
Like,
How's she getting into the key? Like, where's her key to get home at the end of the night? And then, before we go completely into the actual plot, let's just point out things that are freaking oversights. And then they get to my cottage, and they just leave the horses out in the rain. Nobody's like, we should take these horses to the stable. They drive past the stable, and then they just leave the horses out in the driveway.
Mm-hmm. Plot holes. So, okay, Meg, what are your thoughts on how they changed Benedict's, like, injury? In the book, he is already kind of sick when he is at the Cavender's party and being out in the rain and whatever. He gets, like, the flu, pneumonia, something there. In the show, he gets stabbed in the side.
I loved it.
I thought it was much better. I thought it was better.
I wish that he'd been, not that I wish that he'd been stabbed.
Stab him.
Just stab your main characters. No, I thought that it was so smart that the reason that he was injured and suffering wasn't just like, I was sick and then I went out in the rain because I'm an idiot and didn't plan ahead. But he actually got injured in the process of trying to rescue the women. And then he was sort of like too proud to ask for help with it. And that was part of the reason that he started to have this like infection, why it became a problem. I loved all of that it was not just like there was a consequence for his choice to intervene in an unpopular way with a peer for somebody from a lower class to like come to their defense. Like there was a consequence for it, and it wasn't just a social consequence, it was a physical consequence in his body that then had ramifications of, you know, he's alone with a woman in the house and he's having this fever dream because he's probably has like some sort of infection going on in his body because he didn't clean his wounds like an idiot.
Yeah, and it definitely gave more of a reason why they stayed at my cottage so long. And I think it was more easily understood for a modern audience to be like, he has a cold. Dude, I have to go to work when I'm sick. Versus, oh no, he's been stabbed. I really like how
last time I was stabbed, I was at work the next day.
I was at work the next day. I don't get more PTO, girl. Or I'm self-employed. I don't get days off.
I know.
But I love
no stabbing days off.
No. I love as we get into episode 4, we start to see, episode 3, we get to see like 2 different circumstances arising. Because at my cottage, Benedict is recovering, the Crabtrees have arrived, Sophie and Benedict are spending more time together, and it's slower. And I love the joke of, Sophie, don't you know how to be at leisure? And she's like, when I'm at leisure, do I lean like this? Do I breathe like this? But back in London, you've got the maid wars going on, which Violet is like, Mrs. Wilson, you're happy here, right? Right? You're happy here. I'm good. You get Varley, who's starting the conversation with the Featheringtons of, I've got another offer. Hi. You've got really getting in to see Francesca and John's relationship being so awkward. You've got Lady Danbury's kind of struggle with the queen, not wanting to let her be free. And now she's starting to look at Alice as like her replacement. You've got Violet starting a relationship with Lord Anderson. And you've got Francesca and Penelope and Violet. Really, Violet just needs to get better at talking about sex because she's failed almost all of her daughters with these conversations. But that's all happening back in London. And then we've just got like this nice kind of bucolic country living with tension. I love the split between this.
I do too. And I think this might have been my favorite episode of the whole first 4. Because of the fact that we just got the 2 main characters without the fishbowl of everyone watching them, where they get to be out in the country, they get to have conversations, they get to go fly a freaking kite and just be adorable. Like, I couldn't help but think about Shane and Ilya at their cottage. Mm-hmm. And then we have Benedict and Sophie at their cottage, like having that time to just enjoy each other and get to know each other outside of the media speculation for, in the case of, you know, Shane and Ilya. But here it's like, okay, they have the chaperones, they have the Crabtrees, and Mrs. Crabtree. And I think this was also such a smart storytelling choice, is Miss Crabtree going, there's more there, and she's never going to get hired if there's even a whiff of a reputation of her having a more than professional relationship or outside of a professional relationship with somebody who she was at his house. Like,
because she doesn't know that Araminta's already spread rumors in Mayfair to not employ Sophie.
Right. She doesn't know that, but even if Araminta hadn't, there's a real Benedict is not going to have any consequences from having a friendship with Sophie, but Sophie even just being seen laughing with Benedict could deeply impact her career. And I love how often they're sowing the seeds for the modern audience to say, like, this is not just two people who are friends or two people who are kissing. This is not how this works back then. And that's part of the reason that this is an interesting story to tell. This is part of the reason that people love Regency, is because there are these rules and structures that society has impressed upon this small population. Like, that's why this is interesting. If we didn't have these rules that, you know, everyone is so, how could he ask that of her, right? If we didn't have those rules, then nobody would give a shit about the story at all. Why would people watch Regency except for the balls and the dresses, you know? Part of what makes the balls and the dresses interesting is also, here are all the things you can't do. Here's all of the restrictions. Here's all the repression.
Okay, what is your opinion on which show has the better lake scene?
Oh my
Colin
God, are you
Firth
kidding?
Pride and Prejudice miniseries.
Oh.
Bridgerton lake scene.
I thought you were going to say This Heated Rivalry. And I'm like, the Canadian Wolfbird will obviously win.
I'm talking built, jacked men in white linen shirts getting all wet in their breeches.
I have never seen Pride and Prejudice.
Any of them?
No.
Have you seen the Keira Knightley, Matthew McFadden?
I have never seen either of them. Are you okay?
I'm just shocked. It's so literary, Meg.
I know.
Because you've got the Jennifer Ely, Colin Firth 6-part BBC miniseries in the 90s, and then you've got the Keira Knightley, Matthew McFadden film version, which are both excellent for very different reasons. I'm shocked, really. But have you seen the lake scene? The pond
I've seen
lake
clips.
scene?
I've seen clips of the
You've
lake
at least seen clips. So you have like the reference in your brain.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say I love how both Benedict and Anthony had a get in the water scene put on a wet shirt. Benedict, he got out of the lake nude and like was dressing again, and Sophie had to hand him his shirt. In Anthony's season, he falls into the lake and has to like pull himself up onto the dock, and he's just completely sopping wet. Tingles.
I've seen those pictures
Tingles for everybody. But I love how this episode ends, because we've seen all the drama happening in London. We've seen this like really nice existence in at my cottage. You see Sophie, I was about to call her Sophie, start putting boundaries back in. But we also see Benedict is starting to paint again. And he's starting to draw and he's starting to sketch. But as their relationship goes, the episode ends with Sophie kind of saying, I need to go back. We need to leave now. We need to go back. Like, I need to stop this fantasy from running around in my head. And when they're in the carriage, ending the episode, driving back, and Benedict says, oh, I'm sure you have a route that you'd prefer me to take. Because he's expecting their banter to kind of start up again. And she just says, nope, it would not be my place. And I was like, oh, girl. Oh, girl. She's like, I'm putting boundaries back in. I'm shutting you down. No witty repartee on this carriage ride for you, sir.
Have we talked about, like, growing versus resetting?
No,
as a story choice? I've been thinking in this, and especially with this particular book, you have a choice, and often, like, I thought I talked about this during People Who Meet on Vacation, but maybe I'm wrong.
We did, yes. Yeah, you did that.
Yeah, where it's like you have a choice as an author, a creator, a storyteller, that at the end of every scene or every chapter or whatever your kind of measurement is, you have a choice of, we're going to have the relationship evolve and grow and have some sort of change happen, or reset in some way. And one of my struggles with, especially like a friends to lovers situation, is so often they're so nervous about evolving the relationship that they will just go back into reset mode. Oh, I can't. I don't want to mess with what we have. What we have is too good. I can't throw it away. And I'm doing this like circle motion with my hands for those of you who are listening instead of watching on YouTube, where it's like, you know, we're just going back to square one all the time. And every time I think it gets a little bit like bigger, the loop that they're able to go out of. But Sophie has to reset. She has to go back to the status quo. She does not have the ability to step outside of I'm a maid until the end of episode 4. But like, she can't, her livelihood is dependent on being respectable, on not letting things get out of control, on not ruining her reputation. And like, we always hear about the reputation of the debutantes. But we don't necessarily think about the reputation of the maids in most of these stories. But it's almost more problematic if her reputation gets ruined, because then she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have an income, she's fucked.
Yep.
You know, so she has to keep going back to, no, I'm just a maid. It would not be appropriate for me to do this with you. Where are the servants' quarters? Let me wash this pan for you. Like, it's not just Sophie trying to be difficult. It's not just Sophie trying to stay out of this relationship. It's Sophie trying to, like, keep her life together with, like, just holding both hands tightly. That's the only option that she has. And Benedict wants it to evolve and doesn't understand why she has to keep resetting. He doesn't understand the stakes that she has for making a change. So I love the tension there of Sophie can't do more and Benedict wants more.
Yeah, because Sophie has to have a long-term view of everything, because she's not thinking long-term. She's probably not going to survive. Whereas Benedict has the power, the privilege, and the experience to say, like, just today would be nice. That would feel fun now. Dude, and that's why it's so fucking satisfying to leave this conversation where you're like, oh, Sophie, she's telling Benedict no, she's throwing away love. Love is enough. And the audience is like, probably not for her. To have episode 4 open with them coming into Mayfair and Sophie finding out that the employment Benedict has found her is with his mother in a house where he spends a lot of time right now. But she gets to see what a really supportive household is run like, not only with like the Bridgertons and how lovely they are. And she gets really close to Hyacinth and Eloise, and Violet treats her really well. But how everything runs behind the scenes. She says to some of the staff there, I've never been in a house that had more than 8 people. This is huge. And when Gregory is coming home and they're making his favorite jellies that he apparently used to like, and Sophie says, oh, I'll help you carry them. And Mrs. Wilson says, no, that's not your job. Because Sophie had just told another member of the staff that I did the scrubbing, the mending, the cleaning, the this. So for her to be told, that's not your job. You don't have to worry about that. Can you imagine what that must have been like for Sophie? To be like, this is the best job I've had in my entire life. Because if you don't pay attention to that, when she, I think twice in this episode, says to Benedict, I want to stay here permanently and you will ruin the best thing that has ever happened to me if you don't get the fuck out of here.
Yes.
Because she's being told, she's being valued, she's being taken care of. People are saying to her, no. You're a servant, yes. But in my world of servitude that Mrs. Wilson runs this house, you're not expected to do everything. Do you have to do stupid shit sometimes? Yes. The boys get to have the big shaving cream fight, and then Sophie gets to look in and see that maid on her hands and knees scrubbing off the shaving cream. They had so much fun. Good for those boys. But that must be so comforting. And the fact that she gets her own fucking bedroom. How big is the Bridgerton house that all the servants have their own bedrooms?
I was thinking the same thing. Like,
girl,
that was too nice of a bedroom. But, like, she's also, like, getting paid.
Yeah.
She was not getting paid at Penwood. And, like, it comes back to our science fiction. Like, this is speculative fiction in so many ways, but it also is, what would it be like to work in a household where I'm valued is the speculation. And not wanting to get rid of that, not wanting to try to find something else. Like, she's between a rock and a hard place this entire time. And even when she gets what she's always wanted, and she says, I've always wanted to work in a bigger house. I've always wanted to work in a place where, like, where I'm getting paid a decent wage for the work that I'm doing, that I'm respected and valued. Like, that's exactly what Violet got at Morning Glory Farm.
Mm-hmm.
That was what
talking about Bridgerton. I was like, wait, what?
So many Violets.
What's the metaphor with Lord Anderson? No. and that's why I love when you get to contrast it with this idea of Sophie has grown up in a way that she needs to be thinking about this. She gets to appreciate that even though she is still working, it's still much more free for her. And then Benedict has this situation where one of his friends who had in a previous episode said to him, I have this mistress, she's amazing, I love her. He introduces Benedict and says, he doesn't even say, this is my mistress. He says, this is the woman I was telling you about. And Benedict gets to look at them from across the room and go, oh my God, they are so in love. Look, they get to be together openly in this room. It's one club, sir. Benedict, this is not at a ball in Mayfair. They're not being together. Right. But he gets to see that. So Benedict has only seen how having mistresses is beneficial, and Sophie has only ever seen the hardships that mistresses cause. And you add on this, like, that in itself is enough to already have them at odds. But when you add on the layer that Sophie is of noble birth, kind of like bastard children weren't considered noble in this way, but that adds an extra layer for her on why she's not immediately accepting it. Because someone like Sienna from season 1, who was Anthony's mistress, the opera singer, she knew what being a mistress meant. She knew what the relationship was and what was expected of her. And she manipulated that to her benefit because that was what it was. Sophie's never going to look at being a man's mistress as something that she can manipulate to get ahead. She only sees it as something horrible and keeping her from the life that she should have lived. So when Benedict asks her to be his mistress, he's like, here's him being wishy-washy a little bit again. He's like, no, yes, no, yes. And he comes back and they finger bang on the staircase. Like, him asking her to be his mistress makes so much sense for Benedict. Because again, I've solved it, Sophie. Mm-hmm. You've never told me that this is what you're worried about. I assume this is what you were worried about. No, we can be together in this way. Isn't it great? And she has never been more insulted in her life. Yeah. And leaves him.
And I love the decision to make it a finger bang and not a full sex. Because if they had had sex the way that they did in the book, a full sex.
A full sex. You know, a full sex.
It was only a half sex. It wasn't a full sex.
It only went in an inch. Just an inch. Just a tip.
Which she gets off, he doesn't. Thrilled with that. But like, in the moment in the book where he says, be my mistress, well, at first he propositions her, be my mistress, and she says no, and he says, well, come back to London or I won't let you. You're like, you have no choice. I love that they cut that. Loved that they cut that coercion. But then they do finally, hook up, basically. And then Benedict doesn't have to say, well, you might already be pregnant.
Yeah, I don't love that came
that was part of it in the book. This is so much better, especially for a modern audience. There are some things that were accurate to discuss at that point based on what Julia Quinn put in the book, and I'm so glad they cut those.
So this episode ends with Sophie not even saying no, just kind of looking at him and leaving, and Benedict is left on the stairs. Sophie goes away to the tavern with her co-workers, and then the camera pans to the neighbor's house where they've been talking about who's going to move in there. We know who it's going to be. It's Araminta and the girls, and then it ends. So lots coming up, because how is Sophie going to be able to navigate around the house when she might be seen by the Penwoods, or if they still have the servants? Maybe we get to see Alfie again because he's next door.
I hope so. I want Alfie back.
Like lots of drama. But overall, that's kind of where we leave Benedict and Sophie. Benedict is shocked that she did not say yes to what he thought was the best possible solution. And Sophie is incredibly insulted that because to her, it probably just feels like all he wants is sex, and this is not him saying, I love you. Like, this is how
he
we
did
do this.
say some very kind things.
He said some very kind things.
He said, you consume me. I look for you every time I go in the room. It wasn't just like, let's bang. It was like, I have feelings for you. It wasn't love, but it was, I have feelings for you.
Yeah.
And we know, because we know him, that like he still has like a certain part of his heart that's like maybe the woman in silver. But now Sophie. So yeah, I'm glad that they made some of those decisions to keep things on as much of an up and up as there could be.
Yeah.
Here. To make Benedict less of a scoundrel.
Yeah. So now let's chat really briefly about some of the other storylines, because we focus more on Benedict. Okay, so let's talk about John and Francesca with Michaela coming back in episode 4. What are your thoughts on how their relationship progressed over these first 4 episodes?
I understand what they're trying to do. And I liked a lot of like, Francesca didn't get a good sex education, so she has to like go out of her way and like sort of ask for what she wants, but she doesn't have the language around it, and she doesn't know how to, like, she doesn't know what a pinnacle is. So when John mentions it, it's like, oh, a pinnacle, yes, right? And then she goes and asks Violet, and she asks Penelope, and she's trying to get the information that she needs because it's not publicly available to women. And finally, like, John tries and they're not successful. And then everything else I hated that she wasn't satisfied, because I think that John and Francesca's love for each other is so beautiful, and that it shouldn't be that Francesca has never had an orgasm and that's why she ends up going to Michaela, and oh my god, she has this big queer sexual awakening. And I wanted Francesca, based on the way they set it up, I wanted Francesca to be bi or pan. I really did. I wanted her to feel just as much for John as she did for Michaela. And I think they're setting it up that maybe Francesca is queer, or maybe she's a lesbian, and that's why she can't get off with John, which I think is just doing disservice to the character of John. And I still have hesitations about how they're going to pull this off, because so much of the choice that Francesca has in her mourning of John is like, but I want to be a mom. I want a baby. And I'm so nervous about how they're going to treat that with respect, because I don't know how they're going to pull it off. And I'm not saying, and the fact that Michael was supposed to take over the earldom, and Michaela really can't, like, I feel like they worked really hard to set this up in a way that I don't know how they're going to pull it off with respect to the original story that I loved. And I very easily could have seen Eloise being the lesbian and nothing would have broken.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with it.
I'm so nervous.
I'm willing to let them try. Mm-hmm. But we've already seen that women cannot inherit an earldom, because look at the Featherington estate.
Right.
It wasn't the girls. It was Colin and Penelope's son that's going to inherit that
honestly,
title.
Still shouldn't have been that way. It should have gone to the distant cousin and not Colin and Penelope's son.
Yeah.
But whatever.
There's a lot of machinations by Lady Featherington. But
right.
Yeah, like I loved Francesca talking to her sisters, talking to her mom. Violet, get better at this talk. You have how many children? And
you finally had an orgasm yourself after 15 years.
But for her, like Francesca just being able to go to Penelope, no metaphors. Tell me what it is. But when she and John are together, they are so wonderful. They are so lovely. This is why we love John.
Yes.
And I think when, spoiler alert, they do kill him off, like it's going to hurt, and it should hurt. But in the book, John was always described as being a little bit weaker. He was sick often. He was not a healthy, robust individual. We don't see that from John here. So I'm really curious how he's going to be killed off.
He had an aneurysm in the book.
But like he was also sickly his entire life. Like John was always painted as a lovely person, but weak. And that might have been why Francesca never got pregnant.
I don't remember that.
Oh, I think that was like one of the biggest things with John. And his mom like babied him because he was always sick. And that's why Michael always had a bad relationship with his mother. Because John was the favored son, even as he was sickly a lot.
Huh. I don't remember that, but it's possible that I just didn't.
Regardless, like
I just thought it was like Francesca and John had a very good relationship, and then he went upstairs one day and had a headache and he died.
Yeah, which so I'm really curious to see how they're gonna do it. Mm-hmm. I don't love how they brought Michaela back, because it makes Francesca. I can't tell if Francesca is angry, turned on, confused. I don't understand what emotional story they're trying to paint here.
I think what they're trying to do is be like, well, I like John and I'm married to John, but I'm attracted to Michaela and therefore I get flustered when she's around. But I don't know what that attraction is. I don't understand my own desire because no one fucking explains anything in this house without weird metaphors. Even at the end, they're like, it's like a biscuit. And you're like, what? Penelope? But there's certainly some confusion. That's an interesting story of a lack of sex education and what that does to a marriage. But like, God, at the end where Francesca has to fake an orgasm and then John's like, I know you were faking it, but he doesn't give her a real one. He doesn't work for it. Like, I was so annoyed. John, come on. I don't know. She's faking it. You know she doesn't know what she needs.
Yeah, I don't think
Get your head down there, sir. On your knees.
Get your head in the game. I don't think, like, what you're saying about Francesca, I don't think any of that is shown on screen. I don't think they're showing anything with Francesca outside of when she's in a lovely moment with John. I feel like she has zero character outside of that because I don't think they know how they're going to do it. So they're like, I feel like when I looked you can at just assume, you can just, we're leaving it a little bit blank so you can kind of like guess. I don't think they know.
Well, I thought Francesca's face changed. I thought the actress did an incredible job of like the restraint of not wanting to show desire when she saw Michaela show up and like, oh, Francesca, it looks like you've seen a ghost. Like that thing of like she's trying to hold back on whatever it is that she's feeling. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see where it goes.
I didn't see any of that. I think the writing for her was horrible when she's with John. It was so bland. It was good when she's with Violet, when she's Penelope. I thought the writing was great. Outside of that, I was like, Francesca was really done a disservice for as much as I love her and John together. Okay, let's talk about Violet and her phenomenal corset. And her evening tea with Lord Marcus Anderson.
Which, couldn't she have just gone to his house? But I get it. I get the plot device.
No, a lady does not go to a man's lodging.
Okay. She just has this discreet relationship. I loved this so much. And I'm hopeful, and we'll talk about what it is in a minute, but let me just say this. I'm hopeful that in the second half of the season, the fact that Violet is having a discreet relationship and the fact that Violet is having a relationship outside of the bounds of marriage will help her to support Benedict in his choice to marry somebody who is not of a noble lineage. You know, like that she will understand and be more forgiving because of that. And that's why they're working that into this season, is because Violet needed this growth arc, that in episode 1 of the season, she can say to Benedict, you need a wife. She needs to be from the ton. We need to do this. This is your job. This is your only job. I need you to do this. This is not okay. And then by episode 7 or 8, Violet's not just saying, no, you should marry her. Violet's there in the fucking jail being like, get my daughter-in-law out of here. You know, like it's the fact that, you know, I love what's happening with Violet and Lord Anderson. I love how vulnerable she is with him and how accepting he is of that. And also, I love that this C plot is in support of the A plot. It's so much better writing than last season.
It's better writing. I hope it helps Violet be a little bit more balanced, because as much as she's always talking about how much she loved Edmund and Edmund was the love of her life, she is constantly pushing her children. Like I know her and Eloise are very different people, but Eloise will say, no, I'm going to be a spinster. And I'm totally fine with it. Granted, Eloise is a bitch to Hyacinth, but
oh my God, right?
Her saying to like, Violet, I'm good. And Violet's like, you just haven't met the right man yet. And then she goes to Benedict, you just haven't met the right woman yet. I was like, girl, I get what you're doing. It's appropriate for the setting that we're in. But Violet, sit the fuck down and shut up. You're being so pushy. You're not listening to your children.
Yeah.
Listen to your children.
But I did like that Benedict and Eloise would like kind of cover for each other and be like, I'll keep her away from you. I'll go introduce you to these people so that you can do that. And like sort of like they're in league with each other. And I missed the Benedict and Eloise on the swings conversations from previous seasons. I feel like they got there once and then immediately like Eloise is like, you left our club. And he was like, okay, so I'm going to go drink now. And it's like, come on, just sit with your sister for a minute, man.
It was really cute. So I'm curious to see where the relationship goes with Violet. I think you're very right. That is going to kind of set Violet's perception up for when it is revealed who Sophie is and what her situation is. That corset was fucking gorgeous. Her and Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson just being like, I get what you're saying because I'm a professional. I will make people leave. I'll be here to help with your dresses. This will be the best evening tea that you have ever hosted.
Because
my girl.
Everyone drinks tea, bitch.
Everybody drinks tea. I was like, thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson is my favorite. Yeah. Love her so much. Okay, really quickly then. Lady Danbury, the Queen, and Alice Mondrich. This fun little subplot this season, so far this season.
Did not hate it.
I didn't either. I thought it was nice.
There was a lot that I've hated about the Queen in previous seasons where she's too, like, kind of deus ex machina and she shows up and blows things up just because they're like, well, we don't know what to do next. Let's throw the Queen in a scene.
Yeah.
But I think because they're so tight to the original script, this idea that the Queen can be lonely and not want new people near her, and Lady Danbury wants to move on but doesn't feel like there's a good alternative or replacement. It's just like, it's heartbreaking to say, like, you are the Queen, you're the monarch, you have everything there, and you feel isolated. And that is so human.
Oh my gosh. What's the actress's name? Golda something, who plays the Queen. Golda Rochevelle plays Queen Charlotte. Yeah, I agree with her. I think I loved her in Queen Charlotte. Like, she did great work there when the show was about her. I love that Easter egg of the portrait of young Queen Charlotte and young Lady Danbury with the actors from the show on the wall. Thought that was a great little Easter egg. But I was getting really annoyed by her. She too involved. But the scene when Lady Danbury, like, Brimsley comes to Danbury and is like, you need to apologize. Even if you did nothing wrong, you need to apologize. She's our queen. She's never wrong. She's majestic. She's royal. She's great. But if she were to be wrong, an apology would be great. And Danbury goes and she apologizes, and the Queen's like, great, let's be friends. And the Queen is just like, oh, for fuck, no. I'm your subject. We're not friends. All right, no. And then we get to see Queen Charlotte break down. And when the Queen says, I'm sorry, I was like, oh. And then she says, what is her biggest fear is what happens when he dies.
Yes.
Which Queen Charlotte, the real one, died in 1818. This show is set in 1818.
Oh.
We've already seen from the stills released for part 2 that Violet's all in black. So somebody is dying. A lot of people think it's probably John's funeral, but some people are also speculating it's the Queen's funeral because she died in 1818. Now, granted, this is not a historically accurate show, but
right. It's science fiction. It's not historical.
Yay! It's out there. Who knows? But I do like how she's bringing Alice into it because I think the Mondridges have been so siloed and added on as a storyline that to bring Alice into it, because Alice is so similar to a young Lady Danbury, and I think Lady Danbury says to Alice, she's your queen, but you'll be friends. And Alice is like, I'm going to be friends with the queen? What is that? But she also says, you will treat her like the queen, but you will also not treat her like the queen. And I was like, oh...
Yeah.
That's so nice.
I think my favorite line of that scene was, you don't have to step into my shoes. Get your own shoes.
Yes.
You know,
Be
like
powerful.
Make your own relationship with the queen. I'm not asking, like, I'm asking you to rise. Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity. This isn't a replacement for me. This is an opportunity for you to establish yourself in the space that is like hollowed air.
Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what she said to the Duke in season 1. When she finally met him and he was stuttering and being hidden away from the world by his father, that she says to him, like, I'm going to teach you how to walk, talk, and act like a duke. But you need to know what to do with that power when you walk into the room. And I used to be nervous, but I decided, I think she says, I was going to become the most fearsome creature. And you need to do that too. And now she's saying a version of that again to Alice. I was like, fuck yeah, Lady Danbury. There's a reason why she's awesome in the book series and she's great here. Love her so much.
And I almost feel like the reason that she's awesome in the book series is not necessarily that she's empowering to the younger characters, but is that she's not afraid to speak her mind. Mm-hmm. And she sort of like is treated like a batty old lady, like a batty old rich lady, but also she has power. And so because she's able to speak outside of the social rules, especially like pre-Penelope's unveiling, when Danbury is able to be like, I'm going to make the bet, I'm going to make the wager, I'm going to pay whoever unmasks, Lady Whistledown. Like, she's able to live outside of it a little bit because she's wealthy and widowed. Yeah. And, like, this version of Lady Danbury, where she has so much more power and she's not living outside of the bounds of society, but she's shaping the way that people are behaving in society, is so much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. I love her. Adjoa Ando is the actress, and she's fucking phenomenal. She had like a really small part in the Witcher TV series as well that I wish she had done more in, but that was a horrible show. It went downhill so quickly.
Do we want to talk about Eloise and Hyacinth, or do we want to let that play out a little bit more? Are we doing a second half of the season?
I think we kind of have to, because I'm going to watch it anyway.
I'm going to watch it.
Okay. Yeah, I think Eloise and Hyacinth, because again, if we're starting to think about setting up Eloise's story, I think Hyacinth was extremely right to say to Eloise, you're being a bitch. I'm paraphrasing. Because at the beginning, during, I think it was the Masquerade and some of the early balls, Penelope actually says to Eloise, you're actually being really nice to the debutantes. That's so out of character for you. She's like, yeah, I can be nice. But then she's not nice to her sister for doing the things that debutantes do, even though Hyacinth isn't quite of age yet to be a debutante. But she's hardcore judgmental and putting things down. And Hyacinth is like, you don't have to like what I like, but don't be a cunt. Like, come on, girl. Which I think is starting to set up, because the other death that has been made, people are saying maybe is going to come up in the part 2 with, we see Violet in a funeral where, is Marina.
I don't know who Marina is.
Marina was the Featherington cousin who Colin almost married, but she goes and marries Sir Philip Crane. Sir Philip Crane is Eloise's love interest.
Yes. Okay. So I have read Eloise's book, but it's been like a million years since I read it. So
it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. Sir Philip
is not a good book. Especially, I don't feel like it does good. Yeah, and I don't feel like it does like a good service to Eloise. I feel like
no, it really doesn't.
Into something that did not fit her character at all.
Well, it's not taking the characters it is in the show. As that story is written, it definitely does not fit her. But I'm also wondering if her trying to be like nicer and to think of other people when she hears of the death of Marina, that's the thing that starts her pen pal relationship with Sir Philip, because theirs is very much an epistolary relationship at the beginning. Yeah. So I'm curious what's going to happen. I do really like Eloise though. I think I liked that she was around her family more. I really didn't like her plot lines in the earlier seasons when she was like hanging out with the printing boy and trying to find out who Bridgerton was, but then also saying, I don't care, or sorry, not Bridgerton, who Whistledown was, but also, I don't care who Whistledown is. She's not using her platform for good. And what is it with Bridgerton's being fucking wishy-washy, dude?
Well, I mean, people are wishy-washy, partly. But also, like, I feel like Eloise is, like, the modern voice in all of this. And at some point, they're going to have to take the modernity and strip it out of her and give her some sort of plot device that works within the bounds of the society and the world that they've created in the show. And I don't know how they're going to do that exactly. I mean, I do think that there's a benefit to Eloise as a character falling in love through writing instead of through this, like, quippy, you know, ballroom conversation small talk. But then I don't know how they're going to play it out. I think people are going to... If they were to have stuck to the book for Francesca's book, I think people would have been fucking falling all over themselves for Michael. Mm-hmm. I think if they stick to the book for Eloise, people are going to riot. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my own preferences showing up here. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how they're going to pull this off. So maybe that's a good way to end our episode of season 4, part 1 of Bridgerton.
Beautiful.
Okay, so before we wrap up with our final thoughts, what do you ship the most about Bridgerton season 4, part 1?
Season 4, part 1. It is the relationship amongst the servants. They did such a great job of showing these moments, like when the girls and John get back from Scotland and they're all like having fun and chit-chatting in the drawing room. And then you've got John, Mrs. Wilson, and one of the other servants going to the back going, yeah, you know, they're really annoying. This is good. Like, I love babies, but you have to take care of them. They cry all the time. And then Violet comes up to them and they immediately change their face. And they're like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, where's my son? And they're like, we will deal with this. Or when, before Mrs. Wilson gives them all the night off so that Violet can get her back blown out, they're all just kind of hanging around in the kitchen, just chatting. And Hazel is pretending like to do this psychic mystical thing. And they're just chatting, talking about, oh, we're going to go out to the tavern. We're going to have a drink after work. Like, I love how they shot this. And Varley, who up until now, you know, she's been so on the Featherington side and she keeps Lady Featherington's secrets, to even have her be able to go, yeah, I'm leaving. Thank you. And we see her open the door for Araminta and the girls at the very end. So you now know that she's gone over to the Penwood house. Like, everything to do with the servants and how Sophie then slots herself in with them so seamlessly. I loved it. I thought it was great. Meg, what about you? What did you ship the most?
I did love the servants. I think it was Violet.
Oh, God.
I think Violet is just the breakout, standout character of the season. Mm-hmm. The way this actress fumbles. You know, she's this character who is the matriarch, who is always in control, who is poised, who is, like, so just perfectly polished to the public. Mm-hmm. And then to have her fumble through 2 major conversations. The first with Francesca, trying to explain what a pinnacle is. Yeah. And, like, you see her getting flustered and you see her getting sort of blushed and you just the way that she's stumbling over her words. That actress is so incredible with it. And then with Lord Anderson, where she's trying to explain, like, I want this and I don't know how to want this. Mm-hmm. Is such beautiful vulnerability that I think will pay off throughout the season. But even if it doesn't, that character growth for a late in life heroine, which I think, Nikki, I think she's my age. I think she's in her 40s. I saw a picture that was like, if this were taking place today, here is the year that these characters would have been born.
Yeah, and, well, the actress is 58. Ruth Gemmel's 58.
Which is the right choice, because the math on that picture that I saw on the internet was like 1980, and I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, well, they've been saying the same thing for the actress who plays Araminta. It's Katie Lung? Is that the actress? Most people know her. Yeah, Katie Lung. She was born in 87, so she's my age. She plays Araminta. And they were also commenting that Luke Thompson, who plays Benedict, was born in 88. So a lot of people were like, she's cast as a mom and she's 1 year older than the love interest. Then people started saying, no, guys, she was probably married when she was 17, 18, if not younger. Yeah. And the age of her girls being out in society, she's probably the correct age. Yeah. But still, I love Katie Lung. A lot of people think of her as Cho Chang. from the Harry Potter movies, which, like, let's give her the most racist Chinese name ever, Cho Chang.
I know, right?
But she's fabulous as Araminta, so I'm excited.
She's
for her.
incredible.
She's so
love. That was my other. I was like either Violet or Araminta, but I feel like Araminta is gonna be the kind of my front runner for the second half. Is I love a good villain who has like such a strong point of view. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to.
She's gonna get her comeuppance. The coming of uppances are coming her way. It's beautiful. Fantastic. All right. Well, that's all for Bridgerton Season 4, Part 1. I guess we'll be back in a month with Part 2, because I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm just going to hijack an episode, be like, surprise, we're talking Bridgerton today. Before we get into the question of what we are shipping this week, a gentle reminder that the best thing you can do for us is head on over to your podcast provider of choice, leave us a rating, leave us a 1-sentence review, and to subscribe to the show, even if you listen in a browser or in the Substack app. If you just want to go on your phone right now, open up Apple Podcasts, open up Spotify, just click that button real quick, and then you never have to look at it again. It is supremely helpful, and we appreciate you for it. Meg, what are you shipping this week?
I want to pull open this image for you because I think it is one of the prettiest book covers I've seen in a while that drew me in, and then the story itself feels appropriate to tell in this conversation because it's a little bit about like journalism and sex and all of that. If you're watching on the YouTubes, I will put it into the YouTubes. This is a book called Cubs and Campfires. It's two like
I think I've read
beefy,
this.
gorgeous men who are living in the woods together. So it is, Luca is a journalist. He's trying to get a job with the Seattle Gazette, and he goes in for a sex columnist position that's supposed to be a weekly position. And they're like, okay, but actually we want you to write like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy because you can't actually write about sex right now because the political climate is so polarized that if you say anything like even sex education, but also like the gay sex writing that he did in college and like the queer education that he did in college won't fly in a major publication. And so he's like, well, I don't really want to do that. Right. Like I'm a sex columnist. I want to write about sex. And the people who he's interviewing with are like, well, you really got to be like, we basically have like a chastity belt on right now. And he's like, okay, what if I write about that? What if I write about what? And he's like spitballing during the interview. What if I write about like what it's like to not have sex? And they're like, well, you can't really do that in a weekly column. and they're like, what if you take the summer off of sex? What if you don't have sex for the summer and you write about that experience for like a feature, like a feature in the Gazette that could get picked up by the London Times or the New York Times or the LA Times or any of the Timeses. And so he's like, okay, well, I have too many hookups in Seattle. I'm going to have to remove myself from the temptation. So he gets a job living in a fire tower in rural, let's not even call it rural Washington, in a national park.
Fire towers are like, you have to hike for 4 hours to get to the fire tower. Like, there's nobody.
15-hour hike into the woods.
Jesus.
He can only communicate with people through like a CB radio. No internet, obviously. He like types on a typewriter, handwrites all of his notes. Every month they drop in food through a helicopter because he's so far out there. But there's one other person who just lives in the woods. And he's also queer. And he's also gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And he's like, they have this little fox that sort of like is like a little puppy who like follows them around. And so Luca is like, well, no one would know if we hooked up, except that like, what if he came forward and then my entire career is ruined? So they're sort of tiptoeing around each other. There's only two of them for not even miles, like miles, like in the middle of nowhere. And they're tiptoeing around this desire and attraction, but he's also writing about it in a very like introspective way of like, why is it so hard to resist? And it's such a fascinating, smart, strong premise that it had me from the very beginning of like, I want to know how this plays out. And then to put him in the situation of there's one other person and that's it. Like, you know what? It's like the opposite of snowed in. It's like forced it out. But I love this book. So definitely check it out. It is Cubs and Campfires by Dylan Drakes. Awesome. Nikki, what are you shipping this week?
I am shipping Crystals and Corpses, Magical Misfit Murder Book 1 by Jackie James and Lori Ames. I love both of these authors. This is the first co-write by them that I've read. Their character named Declan moves to a small town to help out his elderly grandfather run his shop, and the shop is kind of weird. It's full of like crystals, and it's like a thrift store meets an antique shop meets a weird things. And then he slowly starts to realize that the inhabitants of this town are a little weird.
Oh, I love
it
this.
turns out he has moved into a supernatural town. By the way, his grandfather is a witch. By the way, he's also a witch. He just doesn't know it yet. And he comes to town to help out his grandfather with his booth at this festival. And at a meeting of all the festival organizers, there's a big fight against one of the neighbors who's doing very noisy construction. And what do you know it? The next day, that man ends up murdered. And then it comes to Declan's grandfather and their group called the Magical Misfits, which is about supernatural creatures that are a little bit outside the norm. Like you've got a vegan vampire, you've got an alpha werewolf who can't shift, you've got a mermaid who doesn't want to do certain things. You have a siren who, acts against the norm for sirens, and you've got fae in the town. And slowly, as Declan begins to realize that magic is real, and by the way, he is a witch, and the guy he's really interested in is a wolf shifter. There's murder mysteries abound. It's a little bit of a slow burn, not necessarily slow in that, they have sex in this one. But the relationship is developing at a very, interesting pace. And also, it's Declan deciding, should I move here? Should I give up my job in marketing to be a baker, which is what I always wanted to do? But then my parents talked me out of it for something that was more traditional and better paying. It's kind of just cute and small town, but then there's also murders. So I love both of these authors, like Lori Ames' Willow Lake series. I love Jackie James has some really great series that I love. So I'm very interested to see what this co-write between the two of them is going to look like. So book 1 just came out. And if I check, book 2 is coming out, I think in July. It's coming out in July, book 2.
So we're once again playing Love or Murder.
Love or Murder.
Just like our Christmas episode. Love or Murder.
Love or Murder. Beautiful. All right. Well, that is all from us this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help support the show for no money and just a little bit of your time, head on over your podcast provider, rate, review, subscribe. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at First Dates and Soulmates on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can also see the full-length videos of our faces with a lot of gesturing and perhaps some really cute dogs in the background. You never know. And if you would like to support the show financially, you can buy some of our merch. It's listed on TeePublic. Link is in the show notes. You can subscribe to the show on Substack. Do it for 1 month. Do it for many months. And we do our best to list all of the books we ever mentioned on the show in our Amazon storefront. And if you choose to buy from Amazon, those are in the show notes for you as well. But at the end of the day, support authors. We love the books. We love the shows. Coming up next week, we are kicking off our birthday picks. With Meg's pick, it's time for Morning Glory Milking Farm.
I just realized that we haven't released the Morning Glory episodes. So there we go. You get your idea. Here's what I'm going to say about it. It's speculative fiction.
Speculative fiction.
Damn it.
Coming up next week, because we record out of order. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.